Welcome, everyone. It's an absolute delight to be here today and to be part of this incredible event that we have planned. Thank you for joining us this morning, or should I say this evening. For many of our guests joining us online from India, we appreciate you taking time out of late in your day and into your evening for our first workshop on regenerative agriculture and the important role that agriculture and digital technologies can play in fostering a sustainable agriculture ecosystem across our countries and beyond. My name is Sue Paish, and I'm the CEO of the Digital Technology Supercluster. I'm online today with you from my home in North Vancouver, British Columbia. We're always grateful that we share our lands across Canada with our Indigenous peoples. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish, on whose ancestral territories many of us in the Digital Supercluster live, work, and raise our families. Today marks the first of 3 workshops that have been scheduled over the coming weeks. During these workshops, together we're going to just explore the tremendous opportunity for industry and research collaborations between Canada and India. The Digital Technology Supercluster was founded on collaboration, and so our team is really excited to be hosting these groundbreaking events. With our partners at the Asia Pacific Foundation, it's absolute delight to see Stuart back at this, and with IITM Pravartak Technologies Foundation in India. While I have the microphone for a moment, please allow me to share you just a little bit more information about our Digital Technology Supercluster. We're part of the Government of Canada's Innovation Supercluster Initiative, which is a bold and exciting strategy that brings together organizations of all kinds, small, large, public sector, private sector, and from across diverse industries to solve some of society's and industry's biggest challenges. Based in Vancouver, our supercluster was created 2.5 years ago with the ambition to solve some of those big problems through the development, deployment, and scaling of digital technologies made in Canada. And through this, to accelerate the growth of Canadian small and medium enterprises, to create partnerships across organizations of every size, and to develop global partnerships where we can share and explore how Canada's digital solutions can support economies and citizens around the world and put Canada on the map as a global leader in digital technologies. Excuse me. Today, I'm pleased to say that our small and mighty team is working with hundreds of organizations in sectors ranging from mining to healthcare, quantum computing to software development to universities, and of course, agriculture. The projects we're supporting are creating opportunities for Canadian businesses, the likes of which they've likely not seen before, keeping Canadians safe and healthy, saving and creating jobs, and improving the way of life for Canadians and advancing our economy and our country. For example, our members are applying Earth observation satellites to improve our ability to detect and forecast extreme weather events. We're deploying handheld sensors to remote communities to support the identification of lung abnormalities in patients who may be afflicted with COVID-19. And we're increasing the opportunities for women and other underrepresented Canadians to explore and get ready for exciting careers in technology. These are exciting and rewarding times at our supercluster, and few are more exciting than the technologies that are being developed to advance agriculture while combating issues arising from climate change, a topic that I know you'll be hearing a lot more about shortly. It's indeed an honor to welcome you to these conversations. And this would not be happening at all were it not for our co-founder and my colleague, Bill Tam. So I'd like to acknowledge Bill for the work that he's done to bring this together, and Stuart Beck from the Asia Pacific Foundation, a member of our board, the two of whom are a dynamic duo who have really made all of this happen. It's now my pleasure to introduce Simon Kennedy, an esteemed leader from the Government of Canada, who's been a true champion of our digital supercluster and of the Innovation Supercluster Initiative overall. Based in Ottawa, Mr. Kennedy is the Deputy Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. And before taking on this role just over a year ago, he was the Deputy Minister of Health for nearly 5 years. During Mr. Kennedy's time at Health Canada, he and his team took on a national leadership role in responding to the opioid crisis, focused extensively on home care and mental health services, as well as launching important reforms to pharmaceutical pricing, nutrition labeling, vaping, and tobacco product packaging. Mr. Kennedy began his career in the public service in 1990 and has served in a variety of progressively senior roles in 7 areas of our federal government. Suffice it to say that Simon Kennedy is highly knowledgeable, dedicated, accomplished. On top of that, he's a courageous leader. He's a thoughtful policy advisor, a determined pragmatist, and one of the most dedicated Canadians you will ever meet. Thank you for what you've done so far for Canada, Simon, and what you're going to continue to do. Over to you. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks very much, Sue. I don't know whether people can hear me, but thank you very much for that very, very warm introduction. I think it's probably all downhill from here. So I am also really pleased to be speaking at this workshop. Good morning to those here in Canada. Good evening to those in India, to talk about a very important topic, leveraging digital technologies in the agriculture sector. I'd like to thank Stu Beck, the Asia Pacific Foundation, the IITM Pravartak Technologies Foundation, and the Digital Supercluster for organizing today's event. First, let me begin by saying that Canada and India enjoy a long-standing bilateral relationship built upon shared traditions of democracy, pluralism, and strong people-to-people connection. In the past 2 years, trade, investment, and research collaboration have brought significant benefits to both of our economies. And as Stu would know, I was privileged to have a former role in the trade world and have, led a number of missions to India in the past. So I'm really glad to be reconnecting with our Indian colleagues today. As we proceed along the road to post-COVID-19 economic recovery, strengthening research and innovation collaboration between our countries will offer opportunities to leverage our respective strengths for mutual economic benefit. The accelerating digitization of our economies, accentuated by the global pandemic, holds opportunity for every sector and size of business to grow, an opportunity for enhancing global competitiveness for an inclusive, sustainable, and shared future. Canada recognizes India's global strengths and potential in the ICT sector. This is why the Canadian government worked closely with India through the ICT Working Group for many years after it was initiated in 2013. I'm looking forward to exploring how we can build on these types of collaborative mechanisms moving forward. India has a potential to become a true global powerhouse in this domain. And indeed, I understand that the Indian market for ICT products and services is projected to increase to US $350 billion by 2025. And as global business ICT spending increases, led by demand from the small and medium-sized enterprise sector and disruptive technologies such as cloud computing, social media, and data analytics, Indian firms are clearly poised to continue to succeed in collaboration with foreign partners. On this point, Canadian companies have a range of innovative solutions that are suitable for the Indian marketplace, and we're looking forward to seeing growth in that area. For its part, Canada understands that expanding our expertise to foreign markets can only be sustained in the long run with focused investments in our own domestic innovation ecosystem. And that's why the innovation superclusters unveiled by the government in 2019 are key to our strategy for long-term competitiveness as an innovation nation. Each of the 5 superclusters are going above and beyond when it comes to turning innovative ideas into solutions. Let me give you a snapshot of some of the progress underway in the agriculture sector. So the Digital Technology Supercluster's Precision Agriculture to Improve Crop Health program, led by Terramera, will develop new pest and pathogen controls through the application of computational biochemistry to manage disease in field crops, minimize the use of pesticides, and secure export markets. The Protein Industry Supercluster is developing novel processing technology for canola and hemp crops that will have significant benefits for Canadian processors and consumers. Protein Industries Canada has also announced the development of a new technology that uses artificial intelligence to detect weeds and other crop pests while passing over a field. This is estimated to reduce pesticide use by up to 95% while maintaining crop yield, saving farmers $52 per acre per growing season. The Scale AI Supercluster is working with a Canadian online food wholesaler and logistics company to forecast shipping dates well into the future to significantly reduce transportation costs for farmers by using AI-informed algorithms. Maybe I'll turn briefly to artificial intelligence, since it is at the forefront of the digital revolution underway today. As all of you know, the promise of AI technologies is significant in their potential application to so many areas of economic activity, including agriculture. It just so happens that AI is an emerging technological domain where both Canada and India are making great strides. The Government of Canada's recent domestic and international activities have focused on 1, strengthening Canada's AI talent base, 2, building public trust in AI, including by advancing the responsible development and use of AI, and 3, supporting AI innovation and commercialization. Launched in 2017, the Federal Pan-Canadian AI Strategy is a $125 million initiative to strengthen Canada's AI research and talent, increase the number of postgraduate trainees and researchers studying AI, and position Canada as a world-leading destination for companies seeking to innovate through AI technology. These federal investments in AI are supplemented by hundreds of millions of dollars in targeted funding by our provinces and territories. Recognizing, though, that the success in AI adoption and innovation cannot be achieved through research alone, Canada established an advisory council in AI to advise the Government of Canada on opportunities to create economic growth that benefits all Canadians, build strength in global leadership, develop public awareness of AI, and ensure that AI advancements reflect our shared values. That council is led by my ministry. It's comprised of 14 leading researchers, academics, and business executives from across the country, and it serves as a central reference point to help inform the federal government on AI-related policy. Internationally, we were thrilled to have India join Canada as one of the 15 founding members of the Global Partnership on AI at its official launch in June of this year. The Global Partnership, or GPAI, is a forum that facilitates safe, multi-stakeholder experimentation on key AI issues to advance the global body of knowledge on its responsible development and use. Learning from our multi-stakeholder collaborations is critical for advancing meaningful engagement in AI and digital technologies more generally moving forward. This December, Canada will be virtually hosting GPAI's inaugural plenary, the GPAI Montreal Summit 2020, where we expect over 200 leading AI experts to discuss the initial findings from GPAI's working groups. We're eager to see their progress on projects that aim to bridge the gap between theory and practice in key areas of interest. These leading experts from around the world, including Professor Kamakoti, are collaborating closely to encourage the responsible development and use of AI, including by fostering innovation and commercialization of AI technology to help the global economy respond to and recover from COVID-19. Among other activities, GPAI's experts are working to identify business models and ecosystems to promote innovation, reduce time to market, and encourage the adoption of technology in all sectors, including agriculture. But ultimately, successful application of digital technology, including AI, must be underpinned by effective governance and citizen trust and confidence. Work is well underway in Canada to reform domestic trust frameworks, including for privacy, in support of businesses in the digital and AI and intangibles economy. As you may know, in May of 2019, the Government of Canada launched Canada's Digital Charter, which outlines 10 principles to guide the modernization of Canada's framework policies in a manner that encourages trust in the digital marketplace and enables organizations to harness the power of digital and data transformation. The Charter lays out these 10 principles, as I noted. They're based on key policy themes and challenges, including access to digital infrastructure and data, effective use of emerging technologies, the enablement of innovation, the inclusive creation of jobs, prosperity for all, the enhancement of trust in the digital economy, and support for open business environments and interoperability. Under the Digital Charter, we've committed to enhancing Canada's privacy framework to support continued trust and adoption of innovative technologies and business models by examining proposals to modernize our key piece of framework legislation, the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. These proposals are aimed at encouraging responsible innovation by industry, including data sharing, governance structures such as data trusts or other mechanisms, which would provide a secure and privacy-enhancing means to share data and spur the development of AI innovations that benefit people. But to reap maximum benefit from the global digital economy, jurisdictions should not only focus on raising the bar of data governance domestically, but to ensure complementarity and convergence where possible. So we have to be working at the international level as well. To conclude, I will briefly touch on the immense potential digital technologies hold in helping us achieve a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future. I know Canada and India are already working together to innovate and commercialize promising clean technology. To that end, I was pleased my department was able to organize a water and wastewater focused technical mission to India last year. There are likely many promising intersections between our ongoing collaborations in clean tech and discussions that will take place in this forum on regenerative agriculture. I look forward to ongoing collaboration in this promising area. Climate action and investment in clean tech comprise a key part of our post-COVID recovery plan to build back better, as the government announced in our recent speech from the throne. It's clear global consumers and investors are demanding and rewarding climate action, and we have the determination as a country and the ingenuity to rise to this challenge and to serve the global market, including markets in India. Exploring the application of digital technologies to agriculture and other key economic sectors will help unlock pathways to long-term innovation-driven growth and will assist economic recovery and resilience, and it will help our environment. It's clear the potential for emerging technologies to improve the lives of Indian and Canadian citizens is enormous. And that's why collaboration between our respective governments, our respective firms, our universities and research institutions is so important. And I'm really, we just want to kind of, salute the Digital Technology Supercluster and our Indian partners, and Stu, you at the Asia Pacific Foundation for pulling together today's session. And we're really happy it's happening and very pleased to support it. Thanks very much, Sue and Bill. I'll turn it back to you now.
Well, Simon, actually, you're turning it back to me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour à tous et à toutes. My name is Stuart Beck, and I am the President and CEO of the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada. Prior to joining the foundation, I was Canada's High Commissioner to India, and I see a few of my old friends on the screen, including Dr. Sharma. It's my pleasure to thank you, Simon. Simon is my former boss, colleague, and a friend, and thank you for the excellent opening remarks. He has set the stage for Canada's participation in this event and has ably situated Canada's global leadership in machine learning and artificial intelligence. For those of you who don't know the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, we are a not-for-profit organization focused on Canada's relations with Asia. Our mission is to be Canada's catalyst for engagement with Asia and Asia's bridge to Canada. And our research covers 6 pillars: trade and economic issues, geostrategic issues, sustainability, building Asia competence for Canadians, determining Canadian attitudes and perspectives on relations with the regions, and finally, digital innovation. It is in the role of catalyst for collaboration in digital innovation and AI that I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Kamakoti, a professor of computer science and engineering at IIT Madras. He's also a member of the Prime Minister Modi's National Security Advisory Board and India's representative, as Simon mentioned, on GPI, the Global Partnership on AI. I'll tell you, it has been wonderful working with Dr. Kamakoti in creating and executing, along with my friend Bill Tam at the Digital Technology Supercluster, this very important collaboration. This is the first international collaboration for the Digital Technology Supercluster, and I am proud to be part of this groundbreaking event. Now I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Kamakoti to introduce Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Sievert, and I'll just take a few minutes to talk about IIT Madras, IITM Pravartak Technologies Foundation. This is a Department of Science and Technology funded not-for-profit technology innovation hub under the National Mission on Interdisciplinary Cyber-Physical Systems of the Government of India. And this is hosted by IIT Madras. This is one among the 25 plus technology innovation hubs funded by the DST to support translational research in the area of sensors, networking, actuators, and control systems. We call it SNACS. Many things are envisaged under this program. One is, of course, the international collaboration, and we are very happy. This is also our first program after our setting up of this organization. This is just a 1.5-month-old baby, and this is our first international event, and we are very happy and excited. And I also thank Mr. Beck and Mr. Bill for getting this program to this shape. And so other activities that are perceived under this mission is built up a startup ecosystem, and our technology hub will be concentrating in the area of SNACS, and student internships and graduate fellowships, exchange faculty programs, and fund product-oriented research leading to marketable solutions, and also skill development in the CPS area. Professor Ashutosh Sharma is the secretary of DST and has been the prime mover behind this program. Under his very able leadership, this national mission has come into place, and I'm sure he's going to talk more about this CPS. I'm very pleased to introduce him. He's heading the Department of Science and Technology from 2015. He has helped initiate several new programs, including innovation and startups, the cyber physical systems, and industry academia collaboration, and special programs for women scientists and major international collaborations in the areas of priority to the nation. Professor Ashutosh received his PhD from State University of New York and his MS from Pennsylvania State University and a BTech from IIT Kanpur. And he has been the coordinator of Nanoscience Center and Advanced Imaging Center at the IIT Kanpur prior to taking up the DST position. And he was also the head and professor of chemical engineering. Professor Ashutosh research contributions are highly interdisciplinary. He has published a wide spectrum of nanotechnology, thin polymer films, nanocomposites and device and energy, health and environment, etc. He has around 350 peer-reviewed papers and over 15 patents. And Professor Ashutosh is a recipient of numerous awards, including the Infosys Prize in Engineering and Computer Science, the TWAS Science Prize of the World Academy of Sciences, the J.C. Bose Fellowship and the S.S. Bhatnagar Prize, and also the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Indian National Science Congress. Professor Ashutosh is an elected fellow of the Indian National Science Academy, the Indian Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences, India and Indian National Academy of Engineering, the World Academy of Sciences, and the Asia Pacific Academy of Materials. He has been an associate editor of many journals, including the Canadian Journal of Chemical Engineering and Indian Chemical Engineer. Professor Ashutosh's interests include history and philosophy, in addition to poetry and art, in addition to his passion for science. I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Ashutosh Sharma, and I request him to deliver the address today. Thank you very much. Professor
Thank you, Dr. Kamakoti, and very good evening to you, and very good morning to everybody else who is here. I'm so very pleased to see Deputy Minister, Mr. Simon Kennedy, and former Ambassador, Mr. Stuart Beck, and Sue Fish, and everybody, all the friends here. It's indeed very delightful that we're talking about agriculture, because since morning I've been talking about atoms and astrophysics, and this is something in between. It's more useful, I would say. So it's fantastic, and I'm very grateful to Mr. Dr. Kamakoti for taking this collaboration forward in agriculture with Canada. Indeed, with Canada, my department has many collaborations, lots of partnerships. In fact, I talked about astrophysics. We are two big partners in 30-meter telescope, which was coming up at Hawaii, but maybe not. But anyway, that's another story. So we have good partnerships in many different areas, and they all been going forward with the speed and some scale. In fact, India and Canada working together, it goes back a long way. Let me tell you, 55 years ago, my father, he was building a hydroelectric dam in the middle of nowhere. And our neighbor was building a nuclear reactor there. And he was a Canadian, Mr. Taylor. You know, I've been seeing, the first time I saw a Ford car and say, oh, you know, so Canadians are really nice. And then I lived in Buffalo for about 7 years, which is, as you know, is part of Canada, is part of Toronto. So we would drive there all the time and, you know, look at all the great things happening across the border. It's really, I've also taught at University of Western Ontario. Well, it was a full course, but taught in 2 weeks. And people were very happy about it because that's all the time I had. And it's about 10 years ago. So it's really fantastic that, you know, our people get together very nicely. You know, they are very relaxed. You know, unlike we got programs with about 70 countries, very active programs. And I think the one with Canada is very special. and it's got so much potential to expand. This particular thing we are looking at, precision agriculture. I'm not an expert in precision agriculture, and I don't have a speech, so I would just tell you what we are doing about it. Professor Kamkoti said that he is part of a hub of cyber physical systems. And now there are 25 hubs, and they all deal with some of the things that are very relevant for agriculture, for precision agriculture. So this is about sensors, it's about actuators, hub on Internet of Things, hub on Industry 4.0, which is about also food processing in there. The hub on, well, of course, water, the use of water, energy, and of course, there's hubs on health. So you cover transport and so on. So you cover all the sectors, applications in all the sectors. And very special thing about these hubs is that they are not just for R&D. So it's really a seamless chain that covers from invention to innovation. So it's got R&D, it's got basic knowledge, it's got technology translation, developing technology for different sectors. It's also got incubators and startups to go with it. It's got a research part, the front end to connect with the industry. It's got lots of human resources from school to college, PhD, postdocs, faculty, and everybody else. So it's really very integrated program. And we don't want people to work in silos. I'm sure that's happening in Canada, that people are working together with industry. It's a little bit new in India, and we are, we want to give it a big push to see that it goes in the right direction, that it's not lost in translation, that the scientists are comfortable working with industry and speaking the same language. Each of these hubs has a board, an independent autonomous board. 1/3 of the members are from industry, 1/3 from academia, and 1/3 from the government ministries that can use this stuff and even buy it from there. So I think it's going to work out very well. And Professor Kamkoti has been a big driving force behind it. Now, India's goals in agriculture are very ambitious. So our Prime Minister wants the income of farmers to double by 2022. Now, this is not just leapfrogging, this is pole vaulting, and it needs disruptive changes to happen. In 2 years, you can imagine, of course, we have gotten, well, now COVID-19 has put a stop to some things, and they're not moving so fast, but it's clear that to get there, you need new ways of doing things. This is very challenging. We have some projects, big missions running on hyperspectral imaging, which is so with the satellites and with drones and LiDARs and other sensors. And I think that's pretty much there. So you can look at the soil health, you can look at the moisture, you can look at the health of the crop, you can look at the maturity of the crop. Do they need fertilizer? Do they need pesticide? All of that. Now, the important point is India is a little bit different from many other countries in its farm practices and holdings. So we must factor in when we use technology, you see, so what the difference is and how do we address those differences. So one may have to think about, look, what makes sense. For example, an average land holding of a farmer in India would be less than 1 acre. So you can understand that it needs a different kind of farm machinery. It requires a different kind of the level at which you work and the capital investment that a farmer can afford. So there are two different models that you provide some shared services, like for example flying drones and stuff. So an individual farmer and farm A farm cannot afford that, and they don't have that much information about things, and how it can help them. So science and technology is one aspect of what we are looking at. But equally important aspect, I suspect that sometimes it's not science and technology which is limiting their growth. It is about the awareness, it's about communication, it's about policies, it's about regulation or the lack of it. And it's even things like cold chain. There's so much, there are millions of tons of very precious fruits and dry fruits which are wasted in Himalayas because there is no transport, there is no cold chain. So it's much easier for farmers to throw it all away and not have, they don't have local food processing. So there are a whole lot of things that one worries about when you worry about agriculture in India and its special challenges. And so, of course, data analytics, sensors, all of that, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of that is very useful indeed, but it has to be adapted to some of the unique aspects of doing agriculture in India. And then, of course, one has to think about nexus. When I think about agriculture, I really think about water. Of course, I think about pesticide, fertilizer, processing, and other things, but really water, because 75% water in India is for agriculture. And it's not just recycled water. Imagine this is precious water coming from underground water. A whole lot of it is coming from underground aquifers, which may, it took thousands of years to collect that water, and it may be gone in 2 generations. So it's a very serious problem. I'm sure that one does not need 75% water to grow what they are doing. It's just lack of precision agriculture. It's lack of appreciation for the true value of water, because really in India, farmers get their water free. Okay, they also get electricity free. So it means that you can do flood irrigation and you can grow crops that are water hungry, like sugar cane and cotton, in those places where there is no water. I mean, it's deep underground water, right? So you see the challenges which are of a very different nature. But you see, our tools of addressing these challenges are global. So while the science and whole lot of technology is global, it has to be adapted to local challenges and finding solutions to local problems in an optimal way. And so this is where the partnership is so important, is to really have the global outlook, but also understand, not just write another paper in the same thing that, happens in some big XYZ university, which is good, that also has to happen, but to develop insight into what our challenges are. And so, Professor Kamkoti and all the people who work with you, you should pay special attention to that in all your partnerships with Canada, with everybody, saying, look, what is relevant for you? Do you have an early direction? Are you talking to farmers? Are you talking to the Ministry of Agriculture and Water? Because I had a webinar today talking to these people from, Ministry of Water, right? And so these are huge challenges. Now, sometimes I'll give you an example. So we were working with this, program with Israel, and there was a company which said that, look, we got these pumps, water pumps, which are far more efficient than what you got. And they can pump water from down 1,000 feet, and they can do a good job, and they work on solar energy, right? So what do you think? This is a great idea, right? Not really, not for India. So I had to reject that idea because, hey, if you are getting free power and you can pull out water from any depth and you do it very efficiently and you pay nothing for it, what's going to happen? You're going to flood. You do flood irrigation with that, right? And so there are, you see, one needs some insight into what's going to work what kind of technology would be appropriate and that's going to bring greater benefits. I think, Professor Kamkoti, I don't know how much time I had. Perhaps I have taken longer than you wanted me to speak. There are a whole lot of programs which are going on between India and Canada. And so, you know, they're all doing uniformly good. It's also an innovation. So the startups, they start working with each other. You know, this is innovation space is really great. Innovation and startups in India have picked up really fast. In last 5 years, we have supported about 4,000 technology startups. And they are really turning around the tech ecosystem of the country. They have produced about 100,000 new jobs. They have produced new wealth. Just our Department of Science and Technology, India, and there are, of course, other players in there. But just our investment, which has been modest, it has produced about $4 billion worth of new wealth and about 100,000 jobs. And so 4,000 startups are good. India has about 15,000 tech startups now, and which makes it about number 3 in the world for number of startups. And many, it's about a unicorn about every month, which is coming up new, which is fantastic. But you think about it, it's a country of 1.3 billion people. So 15,000 startups is no big shake. We want to put a 0 in front of it, maybe in 5 years, and another 2 zeros going in 20 years. So these are very ambitious plans, and there are good ways of doing it. Distributed innovation, you know, so you help people. Basically, they can do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in incubators. It doesn't have to be in tech parks. There's one kind of space, but there are many other things which are happening. Finally, let me conclude because, you know, you said about women scientists. We are very focused in last 4 years about how do we increase the participation of women scientists at every level, especially in technology. So of course, in medical sciences and in medical doctors, there are about 50% women, which is perfectly good. But if you look at our top technology colleges like IIT Madras, where Professor Kamkoti comes from, the number of women going there is about 10%. When I was an undergrad, it was 6%, but that was 40 years ago. So it has taken a long time to go from 5% to 10%, but it cannot be business as usual. That speed is not acceptable. So we are putting in new programs. If you have interest, I'd be happy to share, you know, these programs and what they're going to do. In next 5 years, we want this 10% to be 35%. And I'm sure that this is going to happen in the top technology colleges like IITs, because we need to produce the role models for the next gen, need to produce the leadership for the next gen. And that's how, you know, and a level playing field, which is cultural. So you have to address the cultural aspects first and foremost. It's not just about, you know, training and stuff. That's easy part of it. So it's very deep cultural aspects that we have to address, and we will, you know, from these programs. Of course, we're also putting in, I think Canada has this in place, a ranking and rating framework for gender equality in different institutions. The UK has one, and so I think we are partnering, and there's another, you know, place we can partner in learning the best practices from each other, saying what works and what doesn't work. You know, how do we go about doing it? Many exciting things are happening in India. This is a great time to be together and move forward with optimism and positivity. For one, you know, India is a very young country. So 65% of people are below 35 of age. They're all just very energetic, educated people. They're all very ambitious people. They all want to roll up their sleeves and jump right into it. They can take risk, unlike my generation in India, very risk averse. So all those great changes are happening, huge market, and a lot of young people. So it's really a great time to be together. And I haven't any doubt that, you know, the people like Professor Kamkoti and all the people, our friends in Canada, working together would bring value to both the countries, enormous value. I haven't any doubt about it. Thank you very much for inviting me to connect with you all. And I look forward to work more with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom. And I surely assure you that we'll put the best effort to see that these collaborations address some of the most important problems that both our nations are facing. And certainly, this is your vision, and we will take it forward. This is an assurance from our end. Thank you very much for giving this inaugural address for our first collaboration, international collaboration under the National Mission of Cyber Physical Systems. Now I have great pleasure in introducing Khan Manas, is the CEO and co-founder of Terramera. Terramera's big goal of reducing global synthetic pesticide loads to 80% by 2030 has earned several international recognition, and the spray and pray approach that washes 50 to 90% of applied farm chemicals into the environment is the Actigates remedies that has been proposed, and Terramera has more than 240 patents which are granted or pending. So Khan, who is the CEO and co-founder of Terramera, has a diverse background spanning being the youngest member of the Legislative Assembly elected in British Columbia in 2001 to being a TEDx speaker and sought after thought leader on sustainability, clean food, and innovative organization. He holds a Juris Doctor in Law under the University of British Columbia and a BSc in Biological Genetics and Biotechnology from McGill University. And he is also a fellow of Unreasonable Group and was named one of the business in Vancouver's top 40 under 40 business people. Welcome, Khan, for your keynote address on regenerative agriculture.
Thank you, Professor Kamakoti. Thank you for helping organize this, and Stuart and the Asia Pacific Foundation and Digital Supercluster, which we work with quite a bit, on Sue and Bill, and to the government of Canada and the government of India. It's a real honor to and it's exciting to start talking about agriculture. It's an honor to be here and talk about the potential collaborations between Canada and India. My family actually came to Canada from northern India, from an agricultural area in Punjab, and it's the work of actually understanding how we can actually feed our populations in a way that's not only more economically viable as climate and the environment changes, but in a way that actually is more in line with the environment, is, I think, something that is important to both countries. And so I'm really pleased to start off with this conversation around regenerative agriculture, which is, I think, important to everyone around the world, and particularly to our two countries. So Terramera is, for those of you who are in India, can probably guess it comes from the words terra and mera, as well as the Latin for terra. Yours and mine. Terra in Latin is earth, so Terramera means our earth, yours and mine. And we focus on really how to use technology to unlock the intelligence that already exists in nature, using data and technologies to ensure an earth that thrives and provides for everyone. So we have two foundational technology platforms. One is we call Actigate. It's based on our computational chemistry approach to understanding how the materials and inputs that we spray on farms are actually delivered, and how we can actually increase that the efficiency of those materials, so the active material can be more effectively taken up into the agricultural environment, either to the plant or to control diseases or pests in a way that is more efficient without, as Professor Kamakoti indicated, without having that spray and pray approach where we just mix materials and spray them onto farms, to have a more sophisticated approach so we can actually increase that uptake, and as a result we need we can use about 90% less. So 10% of what we're using today can be as effective as that 100%. That brings down the cost for farmers and makes the whole system much more efficient. To drive that, we've also developed this our plant intelligence engine, which is our data, machine vision, machine learning, and data system. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that afterwards. So, as Professor Kamakoti mentioned, we have these 3 audacious goals to reduce global synthetic pesticide load by 80% by 2030. That's really we have the technology today. It's really about scaling this technology out so that it can be used amongst more and more inputs, and that's some of the work we're doing with the digital supercluster on wheat rust. That will be Steve Slater from our team will be talking about at a future version of these meetings. Well, it's also to increase global farm productivity by 20% per acre, and increase soil organic carbon, pulling that out of the atmosphere into the soil by 100%. I'm going to talk about why that's so important. I was really pleased to hear the comments from Secretary Professor Sharma on the government of India's goal to really double the income of farmers. That's very much possible, and one of the keys on making that possible is regenerative agriculture. So one of the major problems with how we've done agriculture in these past decades has been a system where we've become so focused on solving the problems and utilizing tools to solve problems, which by utilizing new pesticides, new inputs, new materials that solve a particular problem, but may have a number of unintended consequences as a result. And so even though we've developed this system that has increased food production, it's not sustainable over the long term, and humans have really removed themselves out of the ecosystem. You look, for example, there are about as many humans by weight on the planet as there are ants. And humans eat a much smaller amount of food, only about 2.8% of their body weight per day on average across the world, about 10 million tons of food per day, whereas ants consume 30% of their body weight, eating over 100 million tons of food per day. But nobody says ants are eating the planet to death, because they're not. When ants actually consume, they actually enrich the planet. Their work actually, both their waste actually enriches the soil, and what they do is in line with the environment and not out of line with it. So how can we think about that to actually look at how we can improve the agricultural economy's efficiency and the environmental impact as well? So one of the major problems is inefficiencies in agriculture. Pests, disease, and weeds reduce crop efficiencies significantly. Farmers around the world lose about 40% of their economic activity due to pests and disease, even after the use of all of the chemicals we're using today. And part of the problem is that inefficiency I mentioned earlier. About 50 to 90% of everything we spray onto farms gets washed away into the environment and lost, washes away into the soil and water. And so we're using much more in terms of the chemistry than we actually need. So how can we actually improve that efficiency? Profits are a huge problem as well. So over the last few years, this is an example in Canada, farm profits have dropped by over 50% since 2017. That's a huge problem for farmers to be able to survive and continue feeding our countries. There is an opportunity to turn that around and to actually increase farm incomes. In India, and the answer is really focusing on the soil. India is a great example. India loses about over 5 million tons of soil each year due to erosion, wind, water, and tillage. This is something we can turn around because improving the soil improves the economic output of the land and therefore the incomes for farmers. And it's a real opportunity. It's an opportunity not only economically but environmentally. The agriculture is really at the center of the potential solutions for the biggest problems that we're facing today. About half of all of the habitable land on Earth is farmed, and it has an enormous potential to be a net sink of atmospheric carbon. If we were actually able to mobilize the world's farmland and utilize regenerative farming techniques, not only would we increase the food output across the world, but we would have the potential to actually turn back the clock on climate change up to 100 years. So the time that for half measures is past, we really need to act now, not only because of the importance of climate change and how that affects agriculture and therefore our lives and the ability for our people to actually survive. It's important for food security, and it's a real opportunity as we come out of COVID, looking at the supply chains and the opportunity to actually build our economies. In Canada, this has been focused as a real opportunity by the government. I heard from Secretary Professor Sharma. It's a focus in India. It's a focus in Canadian industry. This is the Canadian Federation for Agriculture. Farmers are stewards of the land. They want to actually do the right thing. They also have to put food on their tables, and giving them and they want the tools to be able to actually farm better, more economically, and more in line with the environment. You look at certain countries and compare them to Canada and India. The Netherlands is a tiny little country with only 2.5 million acres of farmland, further north in Canada, and yet they've combined their engineering prowess with agriculture to really turn around their small amount of farmland to a global powerhouse. From their 2.5 million acres of farmland, they feed their country, and they do, on top of that, do $130 billion of agriculture and agri-food exports. Their productivity for every acre of farmland is over $52,000 per acre. That compared to Canada, which is only $335 per acre. Bringing that efficiency up to just 10% of the level of the Netherlands would be a $1 trillion opportunity, providing millions of jobs in Canada. India has a similar productivity issue, doing about $96 per acre. So Secretary Professor Sharma, you can see there's this huge ability to not only double farmers' incomes, but go much higher than double. So one of the things that Terramera is leading is really a global effort to really understand and scale regenerative agriculture using data. And we have a plan forward right now to build a global center for regenerative agriculture, utilizing our capacities on machine learning and data, building out the labs and growth chambers we need to really understand this issue and how that actually can scale more effectively into the field. And one of the things that we think about as a company is if we could solve one thing that unlocks everything else, what would that be? And for regenerative agriculture, that's really understanding and quantifying soil carbon, ideally at scale. And to be able to do that, people have looked for decades, and we don't, right now, the way to actually understand soil carbon and measure it is to go out and physically take soil cores and take soil samples. It's extremely expensive. It's very time consuming. And what we really need to do is transfer, learn, and understand how we can do that at scale. And that's what this initiative is really focused on, utilizing artificial intelligence, machine vision, and getting enough farmers on board on so that we have enough data across different crop types and different soil types, and instrument those lands, heavily instrument those lands for the farmer, so we can capture the data and understand how their activities are actually affecting soil carbon. So regenerative farming is pretty straightforward as a concept. Whoops, I just have to get back to the, I have about 5 minutes left, so I just will go over the concept of regenerative farming and why this is so important, and just a minute on what we're planning to do about it. So regenerative farming is pretty straightforward. It actually takes away the divide between the traditional divide between conventional and organic farming. Regenerative farming could be both conventional or organic, it doesn't matter. It's really a form of agriculture that uses tools and materials that pull carbon out of the atmosphere into the soil, where it actually builds the soil. It has huge benefits, not only for individual farmers, but for society, both ecological and environmental benefits, like erosion control, building up soil, regenerating soil. It's called regenerative farming because we focus on it focuses on building and regenerating soil. And the economic and agronomic effects to farmers are enormous. Increased profits by up to 78% over conventional practices, and that's just the start. Reducing expenditures on chemicals, reducing the need for irrigation, and much stronger plant health and disease control. So it's this type of farming has been looked at commercially. What we need to do is build out the tools to have individual farmers understand what they need to do and how this can affect them, and actually also incent them by providing them carbon credits for the work that they're doing. Gabe Brown is a great case study. He's a commercial farmer just south of the Canadian border in the Midwest in the U.S. He converted 5,400 acres of his farmland from conventional farms to regenerative. When he started, he had actually less than 1% soil carbon in his farms. He has turned that around to a level where he has over 11% soil carbon, and the result of that is he's increased his profitability to on average over $100 per acre. That's in comparison to his neighbors and most North American farms that if they make any profit at all, generate about 10 cents to up to $3 per acre. And so comparing that to farmers in India, I mean, there's a huge opportunity both for Canada and for India and for farmers around the world to get this right. So there's a number of barriers to scale this right now. The biggest one, as I mentioned, is reliable soil carbon quantification and data that farmers and markets and governments can use, reducing the verification cost to actually quantify the soil, and then building in tools to increase farmer adoption and engagement. And so the technologies to allow them to do that, and the incentives that go with it. So we're building out a plan that actually breaks those barriers with technology. We focus on computational chemistry, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and we're building out a plan to really understand what's happening in the soil with farmers and break this issue with remote sensing technologies. So I know we've come to the end of my time here, so I'll open it up to questions. We do have later on, but we have an ambitious and bold plan to actually get this right over the next 5 years. It's $1 billion project to really understand and scale this and build a data center that is able to provide those tools. We're collaborating right now with the University of British Columbia and Microsoft, and open to further collaborations. There's major benefits for Canada in this, in terms of jobs, economic output, and carbon sequestered. Scaling this across Canadian farmland can actually take Canada to a net zero emission before 2050. The same is true of in India in scaling the agricultural economy, building new economic activity, and actually building India into a net negative economy as well. India has over twice as much land, farmland, as Canada does. So I will leave it at that. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here today, and the focus on regenerative agriculture, which I think is important to every person living around the world that needs to eat and live on this planet. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Khan. It's an exciting thing, and all the best for your very, very interesting and most important. As you really mentioned, food is the most important thing for everyone. And it's a very good plan, and we wish you all the success. And Tera Mera Hamara. So let us all go and do it, something big. I don't think I'll have a better speaker for you from Indian side. I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Vijay Kumar, who is the existing executive vice chairman of Ritu Sadhikara Samstha. He's a physics honors student and an MBA from Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University. He joined the IAS, the Indian Administrative Service, in 1983. In his 37 years of government service, he has spent about 25 years in large-scale community mobilization and promotion of livelihoods of rural women, tribal communities, and farmers. For 10 years as CEO of Society for Elimination of Rural Poverty, and then a mission director of the National Rural Livelihoods Mission. Currently, he is in the Andhra Pradesh community managed natural farming that was formed in 2020, and he is currently serving as executive vice chairman of the Ritu Sadhikara Samstha. That's a program where 700,000 farmers and farm workers in AP are practicing natural farming. The vision is to cover by 2027 all the 6 million farm workers in the state, and to make the whole state as climate resilient and natural farming state. With this introduction, I request Dr. Vijay Kumar to deliver his keynote. Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Kamkoti, and my congratulations to Mr. Manhas for an excellent presentation. So I thought I'll just start with a 3-minute video, which gives you the flavor of the farming in the tribal areas of Andhra Pradesh.
Plant your dreams in the sun. soil, water them with love. Living in harmony is only natural. What an amazing gift this is, to be conscious and choose to do what's right. We got to stand up for life. Everybody together, together. Time to make it right. Time to make it right.
No more looking back. Times have been dark, but only so we can see the light. Now we've learned together that nature knows best. She's everything we need.
What an amazing gift this is, to be conscious and choose to do what's right.
We got to stand up for life.
Everybody together, together, together.
Time to make it right. Time to make it right.
So that gives you a flavor of doing what is right in harmony with nature. So I'll share my presentation. As Dr. Kamkoti mentioned, this is a program in the state of Andhra Pradesh. It's a South Indian state. We have 6 million farmers and 8 million hectares of arable land. So our vision, it's as audacious as Manhas's vision, is to convert all 6 million farmers. And we think that in the last 5 years, the journey we have traversed makes it, it's a feasible dream. Now, what we see, it's also reflected in what Manhas has presented. On the one hand, we have acute distress of farmers. The costs of cultivation are increasing, but the rainfall is erratic. There is migration of youth to urban areas, and there is market uncertainty. At the same time, the consumers are, they don't know what they're eating. The food we are eating is full of chemical residues, and it also lacks essential nutrients. And there is a overall food scarcity. Grains may be there, but pulses, oil seeds, vegetables. So there is a crisis from the consumer side. But there's a bigger crisis. The way we are doing agriculture, we are losing soil on a regular basis. And there's a huge water stress. I would say there's a water emergency, and global warming, the decrease in biodiversity, water and air pollution. So there's a huge environment crisis. So there are multiple emergencies that are being experienced by farmers and all citizens. So livelihoods of farmers, health and nutrition crisis of the citizens, and a huge environment crisis. Now, the tragedy is the way we are doing agriculture, and Mr. Manhas explained it very well. The way we are doing agriculture itself is a biggest cause of climate change. The food systems account for 45 to 53% GHGs. So food system then includes not only production of food, but transportation, processing, wastage. Now, you can see the land management, which leads to deforestation, forest fires, ploughing, keeping lands fallow, overgrazing, excess irrigation, wind and water erosion. And over the last 60 years in India, the use of synthetic chemical fertilizers, pesticides, weedicide, herbicides, all of them collectively have resulted in this crisis. So the challenge that we have is the way we are doing agriculture is responsible for a big portion of the crisis. So can farmers provide the solution? Can we change the way we are doing our farming so that the farmers can be the solvers of this crisis? And that is why we turn to regenerative agriculture. Our farming is also called community natural farming, is also called zero budget natural farming, because it minimizes inputs from outside the farm. So regenerative agriculture is basically leveraging the power of photosynthesis, because it's only through photosynthesis that carbon dioxide from air gets into the soil. So we need to do things such a way that whatever carbon has gone inside remains inside, bulk of it remains inside. But currently, whatever carbon is going into the soil, about 20 to 50% extra is leaving the soil in the form of carbon dioxide. Now, these are the universal principles of natural farming across all countries. So this is what we are doing in India. We are looking at, can we do 365 days green cover? That means living root, maximizing photosynthesis, have diversity of crops, incorporate trees, minimal disturbance of soils, integrate animals into farming, biostimulants as necessary catalysts, because the soil biology is what is the weakest point in the current crisis. And increasing the amount and diversity of organic residues, use of indigenous seeds, and pest management through better agronomic practices and botanical extracts. Our focus is that all these inputs are made on the farm or within the village. Farmers don't have to buy anything from outside, and absolutely no synthetic chemicals. So this is the broad principles which we are now converted into package of practices and taking it to farmers. Now, one of the things which, Indian traditional agriculture, the strength of Indian traditional agriculture is the way we have used cow dung, cow urine to stimulate the soil biology. So you can see here, farmers are working together to prepare these biostimulants, which are actually, they're not fertilizers, but they are enabling the soil biology to be revived. The belief in regenerative agriculture, belief in natural farming is that soil and air provide all the nutrients that plants require. There is no need for even 1 gram of synthetic fertilizer or synthetic chemical to be used. What is lacking is soil organic matter. What is lacking is soil biology. So if you rectify these two, the nutrients already available will be made available to the plants. And in turn, plants are pushing sugars into the soil, so pushing carbon into the soil. So it's a beautiful symbiotic system which has evolved in nature over millions of years. Human beings have not created this system. We also have pest management practices which I have called here Nimastram, Agnyastram, Brahmastram. So they're all made from locally available plants, and we have more than 200 botanical formulations. There are more than 5-6 biostimulants, and the method of making them is quite easy. Farmers know how to do it, and they're able to learn and teach others. So it is the simplicity of what we are doing. So as a result, the program which started with 40,000 farmers in 700 villages, last year we were able to reach to 3,000 villages and 700,000 farmers. And this year our idea is to take it to 1 million plus farmers and farm workers. So through natural farming, we are not only tackling farmers' livelihoods, but we're also providing food and nutrition security to citizens, decent jobs to young people, and most important, protecting our future generations by taking care of the environment. So this is our vision, 6 million farmers to be enrolled by 2027. And we ensure that they are able to cover the entire area into natural farming. And what are the impacts? We have had 3 seasons, large-scale impact studies. The cost of cultivation have come down very significantly. The yield differences are not significant between chemical farming and natural farming. And this has resulted in significant increase in net income for farmers. And this is precisely Government of India's mandate, Prime Minister's vision is to double farmers' incomes. And we believe very strongly that regenerative agriculture holds the key to double farmers' income. In addition, the farmers have reported better soil health, crop health, resilience to floods, dry spells, and enhanced biodiversity. This is one slide which is very important. And I really, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, he mentioned the point about the water crisis that we are facing. I would say it's not crisis, it's now an emergency. But through regenerative agriculture, through natural farming, we've had an amazing breakthrough. We are able to not only make the soil porous, and by pushing carbon inside, we enhance the water holding capacity. But more important is that regenerative agriculture has enabled us to actually harness water vapor, harness it for irrigation. This is a great breakthrough. We did experiments about 2 years ago, and this year about 90,000 farmers are practicing it. So in tropical countries, there is up to 50,000 parts per million of water in the air, equivalent to 10 rivers of water in the air. So I thought, why can't we capture that? And this has been very successful. Lack of time prevents me from speaking more about it. But I just want to show a result with reference to one farmer. This is a farmer from Anantapur, Mallikarjuna. And typically, he would have taken crop only for about 120 days in a year. This is a semi-arid area. So the land will be fallow from March to June or middle of June. And again, the land will be fallow from middle of October till next July. So in his case, if there is a good year, he would have got around 43,000 rupees from groundnut crop, groundnut and red gram. But 17 out of 20 years in this district have been drought years. So this is last year he did get some income. But the same farmer, in 1 acre of land, he was able to take a crop from March to June. And you can see he has taken about 10 to 20 crops in this area. Then in the main crop, groundnut crop, he's also taken maize, sorghum, bajra, and he's put a live fencing. But more important is in October, he was able to take winter crops, vegetables and pulses. So this is the promise in a semi-arid area with 17 out of 20 years big drought years. And see what has happened to his incomes. And this, in addition, he has also had, vegetables, pulses, millets, oil seeds for his household. So we're not counting that. So this is what he has actually sold. So 16,000 first window, 58,600 second window, 32,300. So it's about 107,000 rupees. And compared to 43,000 where he was not practicing this. So this enables, the water, we have a very different solution to the water emergency, but this is also creating jobs, creating livelihoods and pushing carbon into the soil. So this is one very important breakthrough in natural farming. And we're doing a lot of research in this to understand better how these results are coming. And now the most difficult part is how do you take this, how do you do behavior change? Because for 60, 70 years, farmers have been using chemicals, and they've been told that without chemicals, you can't do agriculture. So in Andhra Pradesh, there have been 4 major pillars of support or innovations. One, state government's ownership. So the government has now set up a separate department of natural farming. I'm heading the department. But we have 2 very important innovations, and that is the extension. The behavior change is done by another farmer. It's not theoretical people talking to farmers. It's a farmer talking to another farmer. There is ownership of women self-help groups, and this is what has enabled us to scale up. Currently, we are the world's largest program in agroecology in terms of number of farmers. And the knowledge and research, we do continuous research, but we also have the digital mechanism to support our extension system in taking the knowledge to farmers. So this is knowledge intensive agriculture, not input intensive. And so this program was scaled up because we have invested about, for the last 20 years, we have been building the women collectives in Andhra Pradesh. So rural women have been organized into self-help groups and their federations. So this foundation that we laid 20 years ago is now owning up the regenerative agriculture program and is enabling us to take it to scale. So in this program, we have more than 130,000 women self-help groups who are our partners and their federations. So you can see here, they do the planning, they prepare the inputs themselves. Because I said all farm inputs are made within the village. So therefore there is zero external cost. So through this, there's knowledge dissemination, collective action, learn from each other. They prepare plans and they also finance these plans. So these women have tremendous credibility with the banks. They're able to draw money from the banks to enable financing of the agricultural operations. So these women self-help groups are our most important strength. And then the community resource person. You can see here, this lady, she is 70 plus. She is our expert farmer trainer. So it's because of her experience. She's the best practicing farmer. She is able to train other farmers. So she and others like her have now developed around 6,000 plus farmer trainers who are able to take this to much larger groups of farmers. We also have young agriculture graduates, doing this work in the villages. And this is a very important slide because transformation takes time. So we'll spend about 5 to 7 years in a village to make this village into a bio village. Already 200 odd villages have become bio villages. So this managing the transition is critical because farmers, because of this 50, 60 years of, their minds have been chemicalized. So getting out of that is the most difficult part. So this is what we invest in good extension system, good collective of women, and good amount of time to make this happen. And we use digital technology. We have smartphones. We have almost all our activities have been computerized. And you can see here, this lady is one of our farmer trainers using a smartphone to, register various things. And we also have digital videos being made in partnership with Digital Green Trust. More than 500 videos of actual practices have been made. And you can see here, farmers are watching these videos. Then we have collaboration with the World Agroforestry Center. We are looking at measuring land degradation through satellite technology. So we really welcome, support from the digital side to help us. But nature is perfect. Our understanding of nature is not perfect. So we need these tools to understand nature better. We have a lot of collaborations with FAO, UN Environment, World Agroforestry Center, University of Reading, Walter Yenny. We are looking at a variety of scientific topics. We're also looking at more alliances. Then we have global partners in a variety of activities, both for funding. Azim Premji Philanthropy has given us a grant to take these things forward. We're also supporting other states in India. And recently we've had discussions with government of Rwanda, government of Kenya, and Mexico. They're all keen to understand from us how this is to be done. Incidentally, the Global Alliance for the Future of Food is headquartered in Canada. So there is a small Canadian connection, but I hope this, this meeting will help us to take it forward. Yeah, I'm through with my presentation, Dr. Kamkoti. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the keynote has really laid the foundation for what the world should look forward in the next years to come, to have very nice food for which all of us live and all of us earn, finally to satisfy our 6-inch stomach. It's indeed, thank you very much, Khan and Dr. Vijay Kumar. Bill would like to host a set of questions, after which we go into the next session. So due to paucity of time, we'll be cut shorting. The break is always the casualty, so we'll not have a break. But I request Bill to host some questions that have come.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kamakoti, and welcome everyone. I see that there has been a very active set of questions and answers on the chat, and I want to thank Karan and also Professor Vijay for their comments. Perhaps I can allow Karan, if there's anything that you'd like to perhaps share in answer to one or more of the questions that's on the chat box, I'll give the opportunity to you now.
Thanks, Bill. So really good questions around how to actually utilize the regenerative technologies. Mr. Vijay Kumar actually did a wonderful job. I really commend the work that you and your team are doing in India. One of the key pieces in being able to scale regenerative technologies is really education and incenting farmers to take on these practices. There is a benefit that is economic that the farmers will see within 1 to 2 years to their productivity and profitability. A lot of it is around education, and one of the key things that we're trying to do is build out the tools and technology that makes it easy for farmers to understand what they need to do to scale that, and also to incent farmers by being able to understand have them paid for the carbon that they're sequestering, to further build an additional revenue stream for those farmers, and further incent them to take on these important practices that will pay them for both the carbon they're sequestering as well as from the economic benefits from greater farm productivity. So to that, I posted a few materials outlining that and some links in the chat here that lay out regenerative farming, but I would also point to the work that I think that Mr. Vijay Kumar laid out very ably and very clearly in terms of specific things that farmers can do today. Definitely open to collaborations on trying to understand the effect using technology and really scaling that with data and remote sensing alongside the physical and action work that's actually happening on the ground. I'll also post a contact. There was a question around Rango and Proof and those natural products. They actually use neem. We actually have a team in Chennai that is focused on that production, and I'll post a contact for myself and our team for those that are interested in that, either for collaborations or those products specifically.
Thank you very much, Karan. And I think I would encourage everyone that's participating to continue to add questions on the chat window. We'll have a few more opportunities through the balance of this session to answer and turn to some of the Q&A portions of this. But without further ado, I'll just pass it back to Professor Kamakoti for the next portion of our speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. I'm now very glad to invite Professor Devendra Jalihal. He is the professor of the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Madras, along with a student and the CTO of RF Wave Technology Private Limited, Mr. Shaktivelu. Professor Devendra Jalihal obtained his BTech honors from IIT Kharagpur and Masters in Engineering from Canada in 1988 and PhD from Duke University, USA in 1992. And he's a professor of electrical engineering. He joined IIT in 1994. His areas of interest include digital signal processing, wireless communication, real-time voice and video communication, and applications of wireless technology. Currently, his interests are in power-efficient communication systems and efficient processing of Indian languages. Mr. Shaktivelu did his MS by research from IIT Madras, student of Professor Devendra Jalihal, and currently is the Chief Technology Officer of RF Wave Technologies Private Limited, an IITM incubated company. I request both of them to make the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Kamakoti, and good morning to all the people who are there from Canada, and good evening to the people who are from this side. So this is a presentation my student Shaktivelu, well, my former student Shaktivelu and I have put together on a technology for measuring soil moisture. This is something that we are very passionate about and want to take it forward. This has recently been funded by the Niti Aayog's, it was selected as one of the technologies in the area of agriculture, and it's going to be funded by them. So the problems faced by the Indian agriculture, Indian farmers has been, explained very eloquently today by our, Professor Ashutosh Sharma and Dr. Vijay Kumar. So I will not get into it. One of the problems that's faced is how to irrigate the land, right? People have talked about doing flood irrigation. And, if there is a technology that tells the farmer that for this particular crop, in this particular kind of soil, how much water is necessary and when should I open the taps? When should I irrigate, right? So many people have been working in this area in trying to come up with optimal solutions. People have been proposing, a sensor-based technologies where you bury the moisture sensors in the field, right, at regular distances, and the sensors measure the moisture content, and we take the moisture content and then do the processing and then give feedback to the farmer about the need to irrigate, right? And so that's the broad problem. And if you can come up with a solution that is economical, a solution that scales, we could let the farmer make an optimal decision on how to irrigate, when to irrigate, and how much to irrigate, right? And so if a farmer knows that answers to these questions, he will be able to make better use of water, which is, I think, going to be the one of the expensive inputs into the farm. And the technology also allows this data to be available in the cloud, and an expert sitting anywhere can interpret and can in turn give feedback to the farmer or to the irrigation system. And so a remote farming operation is also possible, right? So that's the whole a summary. Can I go to the next slide? The agricultural system today, is faced with many uncertainties that other people have mentioned. We are looking for optimum solutions, right? Not approximate, because approximate will not work. It's been tried. And so, I'll now request my former student and present colleague, Shakti Velu, to talk about in detail about the technology and about where we are today.
Thank you, Professor. Hello all. We are Aurav Wave. I hope I am audible and my slide is visible. We make irrigation automation simple and impactful. Let me tell you how we do using our broad area moisture sensor. As Professor mentioned about the agriculture production system, there are too many constraints in crop productivity. You can see that we have two constraints, technical constraints and socio-economical constraints. These socio-economic constraints, individual farmer doesn't have control. It's all policies, all market segments. And this is the technical constraints which individual farmer has to take care. Among these 11 constraints, I also ordered the rank of problem this side. The late sowing, weed problem, disease, nutrient deficiency, lack of proper variates, rodent, plant protection, pesticides, post-harvest, and other constraints can be handled by a single visit, and it's all a stable environment. Based on the analysis, out of several issues that I have inhibited in the growth of agricultural sector irrigation, lack of irrigation promptly is a very big issue based on the huge studies actually. And if you see inside irrigation scheduling, this is the inside irrigation system. These are the 4 requirements. Among these 4 requirements, soil texture is a fixed parameter, water holding capacity is a fixed parameter, and crop water usage for each development stage is fixed parameter. But the knowledge of soil moisture is highly liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worst, and rest are fixed value. These are the first major lock which is stopping our current agriculture production system. It's not business oriented, and it's not very good. And if you see the existing irrigation system, you might have a lot of soil moisture probes. We also have a latest technology, evapotranspiration sensors. And people apply drones for irrigation systems, and also satellites recently, and also a control unit. And we observe the existing irrigation system uses too many sensors and wireless networking, as I mentioned, which decreases its commercial viability. Actually, because you're talking about a marginal farmer of 1 acre farmland who doesn't have money to afford all those technology. In fact, satellite, drones, and all technical stuff, normal farmers and technical people cannot mingle each other. There is a mind clash will happen actually. And the worst part is it's still human dependent. Some people have to come and do the stuff. Already people are coming and doing irrigation, but still it's also human dependent. So there is it's not an automation. It's still it's still not automation, to be frank. And also if you see in crop insurance schemes, government also admit that implementation of crop insurance scheme is very, very difficult. It is because the process of verifying the claim is a problem. Visiting and investigating affected region should happen in 10 days after flood. But if you take lakhs of acres, how many officers we have, how many people go and visit in 10 days, it's very practically infeasible. So we need a real-time data monitoring system, because if you're going for a production plant, you need insurance. If something happens, insurance claim will happen. That is how the people will save them actually. But this insurance scheme, that is why it came, but it's not solving the problem because of lack of technology dependency. And the human might have commits to the other person's thing, so it's very difficult actually. So as I summarize, there are 2 major logs. There is no simple and impactful irrigation automation system, and the crop is not always insured. If you handle these 2 things, we can make the agriculture production system as a business way of approach. Our broad area moisture scanner is a key to unlock these 2 major locks. So we are providing solutions to this so that it can make a professional business approach to do farming. Earlier, it was very difficult to do professional business approach. And the proposed system will be like very complex reduced. Instead of a lot of sensors, we have only one device standing not in active region. It's standing in the middle of non-active region, and it measures all those things and activate the wells actually. So it's not only approximate, it's optimum value.
Shaktivel, next 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. The device is scalable to increase and can cover full farmland. So it can able to cover any number of farmlands. And this is a device, it's look like a small pole standing not in active region. It can maintain a soil moisture at optimum value and provide suggestions for amount of water needed for next irrigation, and provides the tools for verifying the insurance claim also. Because whenever flood is there, it measures what is the height of flood. It's not only measure the moisture. It measures if the water is at 1 feet, 2 feet. It also measures the water height, which is very, very essential for claiming insurance. And it's a lot of like live marketing for the millers and FMCGs to know what is the crop they wanted actually in the farmland. And if you compare the existing probes and our system, it gives 95. The existing probe system requires 64 devices to be buried in a 1 acre farmland to get 95% of reliable soil moisture. But our device requires only one device. So it makes very simple and impactful for the coverage. So a single device can cover 1 acre of farmland. So it's almost covering 1 acre of farmland. It's not portable, it's a standing position, and it's not outside the active region. And this business part is industrial validation was done. And we also won the prestigious award of Indo-Israel Innovation Challenge and CII award for the best startup of the year 2016 in agricultural sector, and also National Agripreneur Award. And we are also industry affirmation certificates, like we are the Smart 50 company in Smart 50 solution to transform India by IIM Calcutta Innovation Park Association with DST and Government of India. And also we are the winner of 2.0 cohort AIDEA, which is under ICAR norm. So these are some of the main logs and the corresponding keys that we have. If you see, the deployment and maintenance is very abstract. If you bury a soil moisture scanner inside the farmland, rats will come and bite. Farmers will remove the sensor instead of removing the weed. So a lot of problems are there. So this sensor will never touch the soil. It's placed top of a 3-meter height, and it scans the moisture level, and it not even have a contact with the ground. And also it can control the valves at the right order, which is near to them. So our business model is to sell the device to the farmer, as well as the data to the farmer, irrigation firms or insurance firm, and government and agro industries. With this broad area moisture scanner, the farmland looks simple and does impactful irrigation. The crop is always insured by using the device, and makes a happy digital farming to the Indian farmers. And we sell the data to the governments also. Thank you so much for listening to my presentations. Thank you so much, sir. I will give back the thing to Professor Kamakoti.
Thank you very much for that. That was a terrific presentation. It's now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. Chris Rampersad is the Vice President of Engineering at EarthCast. EarthCast is a company that is specializing on satellite imaging and geoanalytics for the agriculture and other verticals. Chris has worked in the space industry for 18 years in the area of Earth observation satellites, and it's my pleasure to introduce Chris for the next presentation. Chris, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Let me just share my screen here. Hope everyone can see this. Well, hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking at this workshop today and learn about the agricultural practices happening in India. The presentation by Dr. Jalihal and Sekfalu is really actually very complementary to the topic of Earth observation using satellite imagery. Now, when most people think of satellite imagery, they often think of Google Earth. But long before Google Earth, satellite imagery has been used to support agriculture monitoring and analysis. At EarthCast, we own and operate Earth observation satellites and generate imagery to help solve real-world problems like improving agricultural practices and monitoring the environment. Our subsidiary Geosis also has been developing agriculture solutions for about 25 years using satellite imagery. And our key objective can be described pretty simply. It's to deliver easy to use analytics that reduce the everyday risks of agriculture. And this actually isn't a simple matter. While agriculture strategy may vary depending on the particular location, the type of crops that are being planted, and the agriculture practices, farmers have to make, on average, 40 critical decisions per season to ensure that the health of their crops, from the planning, the planting, all the in-season care, and finally the harvest. Now, Earth observation data can be seen as a key tool to help farmers make informed decisions during this very complex decision-making process. So how does this all work? Well, similar to how your eyes see the world around us, satellites observe the Earth from space, and they can see beyond the visible spectrum. They can actually see into the infrared and radar frequencies. There's a whole science behind this called remote sensing. I'm going to briefly illustrate how one of the most common techniques in remote sensing can be used to support precision agriculture. It starts with an Earth observation satellite equipped with a camera that can capture the sun's light reflected off the surface of the Earth, as shown in the image on the left. Now, based on the health of the plant and the biomass, we get different reflected signals captured by our camera. An interesting phenomenon that happens is that in the red spectrum or wavelength of light, it gets absorbed by the chlorophyll in the plant leaves during the photosynthesis process. Now, with the plants absorbing a lot of red light, we don't get a lot of reflection of red. And this is why generally when you look at a plant, you see green and not red for healthy vegetation. Similarly, the near infrared spectrum is highly reflective for healthy plants. But unlike your eyes, satellites can see these signals. So by monitoring the ratio of signals of the near infrared color and red colors, we can determine the health of plants. In remote sensing, there's a metric we use called the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, or NDVI for short. A high NDVI approaching a value of 1 signals that your crop or your plants are very healthy, and a low NDVI approaching 0 or negative signals very unhealthy or maybe no vegetation at all. So now signals like NDVI allow Earth observation to provide valuable information like addressing carbon capture throughout the world. Shown here is a visualization of how carbon capture has evolved in the United States over the last 15-year time period by using NDVI and plant biomass measurements. Agriculture, by growing biomass, is really a great solution for carbon sequestration, as mentioned earlier by Cam at Terramera. We can also measure what happens in new agriculture practices involving carbon capture. So, for instance, in the upper Midwest of the United States, counties where farmers are now adding cover crops during winter, we can see that there's more carbon storage, and hence it's better for climate change. Additionally, we can see a large decrease in carbon capture over California if you look on the left side, and basically that's due to the forest fires over the last 10 years or so. So this type of information is really helpful to monitor and improve sustainable agriculture practices and also monitor carbon capture in general around the world. We can also classify the fields and crops remotely with satellite imagery. This allows us to improve our agriculture planning processes as well as forecasting what crops will be available in the area to ensure we have adequate food supply for the population. Additionally, vegetation identification can be used in agriculture and environmental sustainability. For example, protected forests are sometimes illegally turned into agriculture areas, and Earth observation gives us the tool to identify these changes very rapidly. This allows governments and organizations to ensure that they are sourcing food from sustainable producers who are not removing protected forests illegally. Similarly, we can identify deforestation over areas by monitoring the vegetation indices over time. The diagram here on the left shows the NDVI of a given forest area over time. Now, each one of those squiggly lines represents a different year for the same area. We can see the NDVI curves generally have the same basic shape for most years, and there's natural oscillations due to change in foliage. This indicates no major change in the forest. But then we see the sharp decline in the year 2019 and 2020, denoted by that blue line decreasing over here. So we understand that deforestation is happening, whether it could be from cutting or forest fires. These kind of techniques tell us what's happening in the forest all around the globe. We can also monitor to ensure good sustainable practices are being used in agriculture, such as crop rotation. As shown in the diagram on the right, we can see two sets of crops being grown. Shown in yellow and purple is growing sugarcane in back-to-back years, and the blue and gray oscillating lines denote corn and soybeans alternated with crop rotation. So Earth observation allows us to see historical activity for any area in the world and monitor for sustainable practices. And this history of the field is actually vital to both sustainability and yield. These images here show you the Earth observation derived vegetation indices on the left side and the actual farm yield on the right side. Now, as you can see, there's a very high correlation between the vegetation indices measured from the satellites and the true yield. The one really interesting thing about these fields is the top field shows good agriculture practices of crop rotation, where the first year is beans and the second year is followed up by corn. In the bottom image shows a field where corn is planted in back-to-back years. Now, in the case of the top field, beans help to bring nitrogen into the soil and thereby improving the yield for the corn in the subsequent season. In the bottom field, because corn is being planted repeatedly, additional nitrogen has to be applied externally on top of the soil. Then in that season, there was a little less rainfall than normal, so that the nitrogen couldn't be carried deeper into the soil, and that resulted in less yield for that year. This basically highlights that we need to do extra work and have extra costs associated with nitrogen application. And really, if you use crop rotation, it gives you a natural way to make your farm more resilient. Another thing we can do in Earth observation is to prescribe where nitrogen is added to the field, rather than putting nitrogen everywhere. And trials have shown that when you do this variable application of nitrogen, you can actually get a 15% efficiency, which includes higher yield and lower nitrogen application being applied. So where is precision agriculture going? Well, satellite data is one of the keys to improving agriculture practices, but it needs to be contextualized with machine learning and AI, combined with other information like IoT, weather information, in-field information. And the other challenge today is that while we have a lot of satellite data, we don't have access to daily scientific quality imagery. And that's really key to seeing subtle changes in vegetation spectral indexes or signatures. Instead, today, we rely on somewhat infrequent scientific measurements, and then we build models to predict what's happening in the field on any given day. So here at the top, you can see an NDVI video created by piecing together the still scientific images shown below. This video is a prediction and model of what's happening in the field. While these models can be quite good, in the future, we hope to have daily scientific imagery so that we can move away from these models and directly use daily scientific measurements to power our key decisions. This is essentially moving away from the era of still pictures and moving towards real-time videos, allowing us to better understand the world around us. This is the future we're striving to build with the Superclusters Earth Data Store project, where we're generating more frequent scientific quality data and then contextualizing these new data sources to address global issues like agriculture sustainability and climate change. So this was just a very brief introduction into how precision agriculture works with Earth observation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this workshop.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm going to pass it back to Professor Kamakoti for the next introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Now I welcome Professor Arun Tangirala, Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Madras, to make his presentation. Arun completed his BTech in Chemical Engineering from IIT Madras in 1996 and his doctoral degree from University of Alberta, Edmonton, Canada in the year 2001. And he continued as a postdoctoral fellow for a short period, and he joined as a research manager in the industry government-sponsored chair program at the same department. And he was in charge of this position till 2004. He had a long stay in Canada. Currently, he is a professor of chemical engineering at IIT Madras, and he has recently authored a very comprehensive classroom test on system identification and the title Principles of System Identification Theory and Practice. Today we'll be presenting an intelligent soil moisture prediction and irrigation system. I pass it on to Professor Arun Tankirala for his presentation.
Thank you, Kama. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are able to.
Right. So let me bring up my screen. I suppose you're able to see the screen with the title of the talk.
Yes, we are able to.
Yeah. So I have taken the liberty of changing the title slightly to a broader one. So I rest assured that it has not narrowed down the scope of my talk. To begin with, I would like to thank Professor Kamakoti for inviting me to give a talk, but I would also like to thank the organizers of this workshop. And it has been an excellent experience until now, listening to eminent people in this area and talking about their experiences, sharing their experiences. And I think the last talk that ended kind of provides a very nice transition to what I'm going to talk about. So Chris talked about the use of data, satellite data, and so on. And more importantly, he talked about using predictive models. And that's where my talk is also positioned here. Personally, I have not had any experience with applying any of the data science methods to precision agriculture. But my research experience has been in applying the principles of systems theory and data science to many other domains which have similar complexities as the agriculture field. Of course, agriculture is a very complex phenomenon if you look at it. When you look at it in a holistic sense, so there is weather, there is farming, and then there is soil, you have water, almost all the 5 elements coming into play. And the way the weather systems affect or the soil systems affect and so on are obviously not by any means simple. They are fairly complex systems. And I do work in the area of complex systems, complex networks and so on, but mostly using data and systems engineering. And what I'm going to propose here is a framework for an intelligent prediction and irrigation control system. So I would like to call this as IPICS, and I'll talk about that very briefly. So as we all know, the precision agriculture is a very important evolving area today. A lot of people have talked about it, so I don't have to emphasize the need for precision agriculture in a modern era. Now, I am looking and I am interested in automating the precision farming and agriculture process. There are pockets of success that you keep hearing, and a lot of research articles when I looked up the, excuse me, when I looked up the net, even as early as probably 2-3 years ago on the literature, it turns out that there are a lot of people working in this field from the system side, looking at it from a data science angle. But again, a lot of it has been pockets of success. What we would like to do is we would like to really take this to the next level. Of course, we have to interact with the farmers and all the real people out there in the field. But the vision is essentially to take it to the field and make it a success, not just on a local level, but at a state level and then gradually at a national level. So this particular automation involves, that I envisage is in the tasks of seeding, watering, crop maintenance, harvesting, almost every aspect of agriculture. And what is also required is a real-time monitoring and analysis of the smart farm. So we have now everything smart, so farms can also be smart. Not that farmers have not been doing it, but we can harness the data, like Chris just said, we have so much data today and we have so much sensing technology today that we can put together. And that's essentially the idea that I'm proposing. And of course, parts of this are not new. People have been trying. So if I look at two critical aspects of an automated precision farming, there is one aspect which is sensing of the process or farm variables. And of course, soil moisture is an important variable. And in some cases, there are sensors or there are satellite images and so on. Nevertheless, you want to really strengthen, fuse these different sources of information of soil moisture or other farm variables, and also use modern, what we call as a state estimation algorithms or soft sensors, which will allow you to take different sources of data and also the mechanistic models that you have for farms. A lot of people working in the area of agriculture do develop mechanistic models for water propagation under the soil. So you can fuse these two, and there have been, interestingly, a few works to that effect, where they have implemented modern methods like Ensemble-Kalman filters and so on. And that's also the idea that I had. So on one aspect, we would like to develop soft sensors as well as make predictions of soil moisture, both make a forecast and a nowcast. And obviously the data that we are looking at is not just from the field, from the farm, but satellite data as well as the reservoir data and rainfall predictions and so on. So it's an integrated prediction that we are looking at. And once you have these predictions in your hand, obviously you want to really learn or model the farm, the relationship between different variables, and set up a control system. And finally, of course, develop a monitoring system. So if you look at the role of systems theory and data science in precision farming, which is what I propose, it can practically help in every aspect of the precision agriculture automation. I'm not going to go over this list here. I've already talked about it. I would like to go ahead in the interest of time and talk about some of the emerging literature. So if you were to do a quick literature review, you will find, at least from the viewpoint of applying system science and data science in precision farming, you'll see that there has been a host of attempts, a lot of efforts gone into using state estimation techniques, as I mentioned earlier, in hydrological studies, or developing intelligent control and monitoring in hydroponic and aeroponic systems. Now, these are some of the emerging systems, as some of you will already know. We were kind of working with a company that does the hydroponics, and they were looking at using camera images to figure out how to supply nutrients. So that's still a project under discussion, and that's a very interesting idea, so to speak. And if you take that idea and generalize to precision agriculture, that's exactly what we want to do for the precision farming. And model predictive control, whose birthplace has been chemical engineering, has been now applied across different fields, and precision farming has been no exception. So there is a lot of literature and review of use of these techniques in precision farming. So idea in model predictive control is you have either a mechanistic model or a data-driven model, and you want to use that for predicting the variables and then taking a control action right now. And the control actions would be where to water, for example, or some other action decisions that the farmer has to take in terms of when to sow the seeds and what is the right time for looking at, let us say, if you are, let's say you're going for organic farming, even if you're going for organic farming where there is no chemicals that you're going to use, there are some other decisions that you have to make. All those constitute what we call as control actions. And then you have the IoT-based precision agriculture systems as an emerging area, including the modern now artificial intelligence and ML-based precision farming. So a lot of literature exists, but still there are so many unsolved problems, as many of them have spoken until now. Now, one of the things that has not been tried in the literature is what we call as iterative learning control. Now, if you keep aside the control part, if you don't like the word control, think of it as a decision-making system. What iterative learning does is it essentially looks at a process that is being conducted repetitively and learns, like we naturally do from in walking, cooking, or any repetitive activity. It could be singing, it could be anything that is repetitive. So you learn from your previous batches and then make improvements. And that's exactly what we would like to bring to agriculture. And interestingly, people in the literature have not tried this. Iterative learning control has its origins in robotics, where you train robots to do repeatedly, to do repetitive actions. So there has been a lot of applications of this ILC in semiconductor industry, pharmaceutical industry, but not at all in agriculture. And I personally feel that the iterative learning control has a lot to offer in farming, because farming is a repetitive task and you would like to learn from your previous batches. Of course, the learning filters that are being used will take into account the uniqueness of each crop while learning from the commonality across crops. That is the idea. So you have, if you think of each crop as a batch and the plant as, the plant interestingly is not a plant, there is some similarity between the plant in engineering and the plant in agriculture. But think of this plant as your farming process. Then across batches, you keep track the error. So obviously you have a certain quality in mind. End quality could be in terms of yield. It could be in terms of the health of the crop, everything. And you ask whether you have met the target. And initial first batches, maybe you don't. But how do you really learn from the mistakes in an automated way and bring it back to your decision-making system is what ILC does. And we have been working on in this field for quite some time. And we have made some interesting contributions. So we would like to bring that to the farming arena. So I would just like to end with these two slides that I have. One is the objectives of the IPICS, the Intelligent Prediction and Irrigation Control Systems that we are proposing. One, we would like to predict crop variables, for example, soil moisture or yield, using current conditions on the field and short-term weather forecasts or any other data that's available for that particular region. Secondly, we would like to make decisions on irrigating the farm using both model-based and model-free control strategies, where we propose to incorporate the modern RL or reinforcement learning-based strategies, essentially borrowing ideas from the AI arena. And thirdly, the unique contribution that we would like to bring in, which has not been tried so far anywhere in the world, is to use the iterative learning control to make improvements across crop seasons so as to account for repetitive phenomena. It could be repetitive disturbances, it could be whatever is happening repetitively across crops. And finally, smartly monitor the farm using well-designed hybrid fault detection systems. Now, fault detection literature is a very rich, has a very rich history in process engineering, and it is only waiting to be applied to agricultural field. Some of them have already done, but not in a full sense, I would say. So there is, for example, let me give an example. The farmer makes certain observations which your data is not capturing. So how do you take the farmer's observations, textual observations, and capture that into your monitoring system? That is what we mean by hybrid fault detection systems in IPICS. So I'll just end with this schematic here, which gives you an idea of the framework that we have for the IPICS. So here is a farm that we have, and there are mechanistic models. And then you have data coming from the farm, which is then used for a predictive control, which runs within a particular crop, or you can say within a batch. And the crop data in turn is used in conjunction with the iterative learning controller, which looks at across batches. So it's a second layer of control that accounts for corrections that you have to make based on the mistakes that we could have possibly made in the previous crop. And to this controller also goes the predictions of variables that either you're sensing or that you could not sense. And what enables these predictions, what is the food for making these predictions? Either you have satellite data, or you have the rainfall data, or rainfall, historical rainfall, or maybe historical, or maybe rainfall predictions coming from another system. So we have been involved in a couple of projects where we have done weather forecasting. So we could bring in those. And thirdly, measurements of reservoir levels that are responsible for irrigating those fields. So you fuse all of this data and develop predictions, which in turn go and feed into the controller. And then, of course, you have a supervisory monitoring system to govern the farm. So it is a very, I would say, comprehensive and a holistic system that we would like to look at. Of course, as I said, we really look forward to hands-on experience in this field. And we have started our initial kind of collaboration with the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune. So it's just about a month or two old that we have started talking about using satellite data and so on to make predictions for precision farming. So thank you very much. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Professor Arun. We are clubbing the question answer to the last after the presentations.
Sure.
So, and please look at the chat, and then there can be questions which you can answer.
Sure, sure.
Thank you very much. Now I have pleasure in introducing Professor Sean Smuckler from University of British Columbia. Sean is the Chair of Agriculture and the Environment, an Associate Professor and Associate Dean of Graduate and Postgraduate Studies for the Faculty of Land and Food Systems at the University of British Columbia. His research currently focuses on helping farmers adapt to climate change and improve the sustainability of their farming practices, specifically as they relate to soils. Sean received a PhD in ecology from the University of California, Davis, where he also did his undergraduate studies. He holds MSc in forest soils from the University of Washington, Seattle. Over to Professor Sean.
Great, thanks. Thanks so much. Just going to share my screen here. It's very nice to join you this morning and this evening. Hopefully everyone can see the screen okay. So I'm going to talk to you about proximal and remote sensing technologies to support regenerative agriculture. It's been a great set of talks, all really have helped to build towards and lay the groundwork for what I'm about to talk about. So as Karn and others pointed out earlier today, regenerative agriculture is really about the soil. We're trying to get carbon dioxide from the atmosphere back into the soil so that we can improve infiltration, we can improve water holding capacity, increase nutrient storage and cycling, improve the tilth of the soil, promote disease resistance, but overall improve the health of the crop and the farming system. So it's a really exciting time right now. There are a number of us who have been working on regenerative agriculture for many years before it was actually called regenerative agriculture. And you can see from Google Trends that this term has really taken hold. It's over the last 5 or so years, it's really increased in popularity. And this has been regionally driven by a few countries. Australia, you can see in dark blue there, but also here in Canada and in India. So yeah, it's very exciting to see that regenerative agriculture is taking off, at least in the minds of the public. But there's a long way to go. So this graph is showing our national inventory data for soil organic carbon. And I would argue that soil organic carbon is the key indicator for telling us how we are doing in terms of regenerative agriculture. So in this graph, we're showing that in dark green here, that Canada overall is increasing soil organic carbon between 1981 and 2011. But this has been largely driven by the activities in our prairie provinces. And you can see here in BC, where I'm speaking to you from, we've made barely any gains in SOC. And then in other parts of the country, we actually are seeing the SOC levels go in the wrong direction. So we need to reverse this trend. So there's two important takeaways from this graph. One, There are places that have really demonstrated how to do regenerative agriculture. And two, there's a lot of opportunity to increase the acreage of farms that are doing it. So others have pointed out some of the key challenges for mobilizing regenerative agriculture. I would say that the two prominent ones are identifying practices that actually work for a wide range of crops and conditions. We've done a great job demonstrating on research station and at a few select farms the practices that can really build SOC, but we haven't done this for the variation of crops. Like in BC, we have over 20 commodity crops that are grown in the province. And furthermore, we see that the adoption of these practices are fairly low. So we need to incentivize widespread adoption of these practices immediately. So the research objectives of my lab, the Sustainable Agricultural Landscapes Lab, are to develop accurate, cost-effective quantitative numbers for regenerative agricultural practices. So our approach, very simply, and this is where the proximal and remote sensing technologies come in. So we work on research station, but mainly on farm, directly with farmers, to sample their soils. As Karen pointed out, this is an incredibly expensive, labor-intensive process. But then we use mid-infrared spectroscopy in the lab, which actually reduces the cost of analysis by 75% compared to traditional analysis. And then we integrate some of the technologies that have been talked about before in previous talks, remote sensing using both drone and satellite imagery with machine learning to predict continuous digital soil maps of properties like soil organic carbon over large regions. So here in British Columbia, a few of the practices that we're really focused on quantifying are winter cover crops, short-term grassland set aside, perennial cropping, hedgerows, and riparian buffers. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some results of a project that we did with the BC Ministry of Agriculture, led by two of my graduate students, Sid Paul and Lindsay Dowell. So they sampled over 310 sites around the Lower Fraser Valley, one of the most productive regions in Canada. They developed land use, land cover maps over time using Landsat imagery, developed land use change maps for this region. And then from that, using machine learning, random forest specifically, they were able to predict soil organic carbon change from 1984 through when we did the sampling in 2018. Unfortunately, it's not a good news story. Basically, we saw that 27% of the SOC was unchanged, whereas 61% of the landscape, we saw some decline in soil organic carbon, and only on 12% we saw an increase. What this equated to was 5.8 megatons of CO2 loss. That's 10% of our agricultural's national contribution annually to emissions. So this graph illustrates the breakdown by land use, land cover change in box plots that are showing the mean in the dot here and the range of distribution of soil organic carbon change. And everything to the left is bad news. Basically, we're losing soil organic carbon. From annual crops that have not changed over that time period, we see a sharp decline. From annual crops that integrate perennial grasslands, we see a lesser decline. And then when we see perennial crops installed from annual crops, we also see lesser decline. So what we've done now is we've drilled down to specific practices. So we're really interested in looking at the short-term grassland set-asides and winter cover crops. And we've identified these in a specific area in the delta of this region. And again, done that analysis from 84 to 2018. And for each of these specific practices, we can now develop that same sort of analysis of SOC change. And again, it's not a great news story. So even though these regenerative practices have been widely promoted, what we're seeing is that all of our cropland in this region are in decline, particularly annual cropping only compared to our perennial berries and grasses. What we have seen though, is that when we measure farm edges, hedgerows and woody riparian buffers, we see that we can actually increase landscape level carbon dramatically. So the soil changes very slowly, but what we see is a lot of change in carbon in the biomass. And again, using satellite imagery analysis, in this case, RapidEye at 5-meter resolution, we've identified areas in the same region that have high amounts of hedgerows and riparian buffers, at the same time regions that have a great amount to increase their buffers. So from this work, we've unfortunately identified that soil organic carbon is in decline across one of the most productive regions in Canada, particularly in Delta. And our preliminary results that show that even though we're promoting these regenerative practices, they're not increasing SOC in the long term. And that we do have practices that are clearly beneficial and we should promote on a widespread basis. And I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Sean. That was a great presentation. And again, just a reminder for participants to enter your questions on the chat. I realize that we're at the 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific and the 10:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time now. But if you'll bear with us, we just have one more presentation from Bruce Ringrose, and then we'll move to the Q&A. So for all those that can continue to stay with us, this has been a fantastic set of conversations. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Bruce Ringrose, who's the Head of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations at Farmers Edge. Now, Bruce is a strategy and business development leader with more than 20 years of experience in economic and environmental initiatives. Bruce advances the strategic plans and spearheads partnership development that have solidified Farmers Edge as a global leader in sustainable agriculture risk management solutions. So without further ado, let me introduce Bruce. Please, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Bill, and hopefully everyone can hear me all right. And good evening to our new friends and colleagues in India. I'm always amazed by agriculture and the changes and innovation and challenges, and as well as opportunities across the globe. And a big shout out to each one of the presenters today. Fascinating, and much like in my work, I get to deal with agriculture in Canada, Brazil, Ukraine, Australia, and the US. And every region is a little bit different, the challenge is different, and we need to recognize those and apply different solutions to the situation. So thank you to our Indian friends and colleagues for bearing with us this evening, your time. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, and it's a beautiful day here, beautiful fall day of 20 degrees Celsius, which won't last long, but it's certainly enjoyable at this time of year. As I mentioned, we are a Canadian company headquartered in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and in our valued Prairie region. And as Sean mentioned, we've seen some great changes in best management practices across the prairies. And I also want to shout out to Chris at EarthCast for explaining satellite imagery. So I don't have to, and he did a terrific job at that. But it's one of the key tools in the toolkit going forward, mostly because, as he described, you can cover the whole Earth, where drones, you need specialized training, equipment, and cover a very small regional area on any given day. So I'm going to take a look at this from a different perspective, and some of our friends from India have already sort of alluded to some of these challenges that agriculture sees, whether it be at a 1-acre farm or at a 3,000-acre farm, or a corporate farm that we do business with in Australia or Brazil, where you're managing a couple 100,000 acres at a time. And what we're all here about discussing today is data and how do you put it to work? How can you create predictive models, actual yield opportunities, and measure for success and validate those results. And I recognize one of the individuals from India was talking about insurance, and he's bang on. This is an incredible opportunity to take the data of agriculture and support some of the key pillars of what will make agriculture change. And I'm going to present those in a couple of seconds. But as everyone has alluded to today or talked about, you have all of these different feeds of data and information coming in. For a company like Farmers Edge, you know, two of the sensors we have ourselves is we have Canada's largest privately held weather network, which helps to really fine tune the models on a field by field basis across the prairies in particular. And one of the things maybe, and I can't speak for India, but I can speak for other regions of the world, you know, places like Brazil do not have a public weather network. So we've actually developed our own network and mesh network to move that data around in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil. And so when we think of barriers, access to either public data or creating the advantage of data procurement through private industry is extremely valuable. And then how do you put that data to work? One of the projects that we're working on, and Mr. Kennedy at the beginning, and as Bill knows, Bill and I met a few years ago when the superclusters came along. Farmers Edge is one of the founding members of the Protein Industries Canada initiative, which runs alongside the Digital Technology Supercluster. And so this is really the first time that we've sort of interfaced as two different clusters. But already what I'm seeing is some significant opportunities for more collaboration. And now by understanding more about what our friends in India can provide and their expertise that I've gotten to know over the years, but in a different sector, I already see 2 or 3 opportunities today, Bill, where I would really like to speak with our Indian friends and explore if there's other opportunities, whether it be on a research and development basis or on a commercial basis. So thank you to everyone here today. But one of the things that we're continuing to see, and as we think of food, particularly from a consumer who doesn't understand the science that goes into growing soybeans or canola or the livestock industry, is there's a huge divide here. Let's make no mistake about this. I've worked in sustainability my whole career. And what you have on the far right is you have the Walmarts of the world and other big retailers trying to push backwards on the grower to say, well, you have to tell us more. And at the meantime, where a company like ourselves works and others is on the left side of this. And so there's really a disconnect here. And I'll say there's almost a data struggle going on. Is it getting better? I believe so, but we have a long way to go. There's no question about that. But there's a few interesting things that we're working on. We're really trying to understand the sourcing specifications as new products and ingredients, particularly in the protein space, plant protein, of course, we're talking about. And what are those specs and practices that are required at the field level? What is going on here, and how can we ensure the integrity of that product sourcing to meet that ingredient specification requirement that then goes onward into a final product and to your grocery store or to your table at home. So just in general trends, I don't think this is anything that no one's not familiar with. But one of the things that I keep hearing and people trying to define sustainability, and then I speak with some of the big food companies in the US, and eventually they let it slip. This isn't about sustainable sourcing. This is about strategic sourcing. There's a big difference between that. Strategic sourcing is trying to ensure that through predictive modeling that they are going to get the quantity and the quality of the product they need to run their operations to make that, end product that you may buy on a day-to-day basis. That's a significant difference. However, that said, the strategic sourcing also does require the sustainability that some of our colleagues have talked about today in terms of environmental benefits. And we've done a lot of work in that area, just like some of the others have presented today. But at the 50,000 foot level, there are three pillars that drive agriculture. And let's make no mistake about this. There is the regulatory environment, there is finance, and finance means access to capital, as was explained by our Indian colleagues when they're talking about some of their, and I apologize if I don't have the right names for these programs, but really grassroots approaches for cooperatives to access finance. And then we heard about insurance. We're big into insurance now. The insurance companies see enormous value now in all of the data layers that companies like ourselves can provide. And, you know, just for one specific point is back in early June, we had just launched our hail insurance product with Palliser Insurance on the Canadian prairies. We launched that 2 days before there was a significant hail event in Alberta, which I think it ended up crippling. We were able to digest the data we saw overnight, and we were able to go to the insurance company and to our customer base and say, are you aware that there's over 70,000 acres of damage that occurred from that hailstorm yesterday? And obviously the benefit of all this data and digitization is that an insurance adjuster does not need to go to the field. They need to see the data and they can figure out what that claim may look like, as can obviously the grower, because a lot of these growers are into the 2,000, 3,000, 20,000 acre operation. They cannot walk every field every day, and they need more tools to help them be more productive, as all of you have said today. And obviously the market, I talked about specific ingredient requirements and best practices. These are the three pillars. Yes, there is the consumer, but if you're going to drive change, access to finance, insurance, markets, and understand the regulatory environment. And the regulatory environment needs to understand that the private industry is moving so fast that we can fill the data gaps quicker than the government can recognize and try to shape regulation. So I think there's a real opportunity across all three pillars and how they, number one, support the grower, number two, support the food processor, and number three, make sure that the customer, the consumer, receives a high value, safe and nutritious product that we all desire, whether you're in this industry or not. And so there's four pillars as we look at this sort of thing. I sort of mentioned data procurement, information capture is extremely expensive. In the case of, you know, the Government of Canada and Environment Canada, they have roughly 1,000 weather stations across Canada. We ourselves own and operate over 3,500. The government can't keep up at that pace and make those kinds of investments. So is it up to private industry to work with that data, create that infrastructure and move it forward? Or should we be waiting for government to actually realize that they need to make this data accessible? And all these other things that all of our colleagues today have talked about, data analysis, derivatives. There's, you know, I can't think of the opportunities that we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years from derivative solutions from the data across the value chain. Does not matter where in the value chain. Storage and transmission, you know, cloud computing, etc. Distributed ledgers, you know, blockchain approaches. Where are the financial markets going with those kinds of things, and what are the requirements around those? And then there has to be a bi-directional communication requirement to move that data from the farm to the consumer, but from the consumer also back to the farm. Here's a project we're working on right now. And this is being supported by the Protein Industries Canada, where we start to tie different requirements across the value chain, starting with ourselves at the far left and some real-time soil analysis technologies like Soil Reader in Winnipeg. Next Instruments is near-infrared protein analysis that sits on a combine. They're out of Australia. The National Research Council is going to validate those protein claims. The CanPlug and CanScale is our own proprietary technologies. Grain systems inside the bin management on farm or at elevators. And then we have other sensors that the Prairie Ag Machinery Institute are involved with. And there's a big, I don't know if you'd be familiar in India with Richardson, but Richardson is one of the largest players in Canada that exports canola and other value-added proteins to the world. And on the far right, as I mentioned earlier about these up and emerging processors that have very tight specifications on what comes into their plant so that they can make a value-added protein ingredient that they then sell on to a Nestle, a General Mills, or other players in the world, including players not only in Asia Pacific, but into the European Union. And then underneath here, what we're trying to do is create that data pipeline. So where we start, move it through the value chain. And we're working with the Standards Council of Canada. The project will be announced very shortly on creating the agricultural blockchain standard framework. And underneath that will come traceability, which will support strategic sourcing in the long term. But all of these fundamentals, yes.
If we could just maybe wrap up in the next few seconds, that would be great.
You bet. So I'll just skip ahead here. But we've talked, a lot of people have already presented, what are those advantages of adoption of these kinds of things? And, you know, a few people have already mentioned these things, but Dr. Sharma at the beginning mentioned hyperspectral imagery. We've done some testing with that through aerial flights. We see a huge opportunity for that and its use in precision agriculture. It's just now, can the EarthCast or other players in the world get those missions up there to get the frequency of hyperspectral so that companies like ourselves can use it? Thank you, Bill, and thank you to everyone across the globe. This is great. I love doing these things and I love learning about agriculture in other regions in the world. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for staying with us. We had promised some Q&A as part of this session. I know that there already has been a very active chat discussion. Many questions to Karn, who had to leave, unfortunately, but I believe he answered many of them. And for Mr. Vijay, I think there's a number of questions that were directed to him as well, and I think he's been responding along the way. There are two questions in particular that I'm going to open up for all the speakers. One of the questions was pertaining to consumer behavior. With all the discussion that's been happening, perhaps ties a little bit to Bruce's most recent presentation. You know, what are some of the things that we can do to help to shape what consumer demand looks like, such that there can be perhaps a catalyst for sustainable practices throughout the supply chain? So perhaps I can just invite any of the speakers that had just presented over the last couple hours, who would like to maybe tackle that question? Bruce, maybe you can kick us off, given your presentation just recently.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, let's be honest, the consumer is looking for plant-based protein options to, you know, a meat alternative, just as one example. But is that really being driven by the consumer, or is it being driven by the food companies? And I think, you know, unfortunately, as we become more, whether it be in Canada or anywhere in the world, people living in urban centers, they've lost touch with actually how their food is grown. And I think not only Canadian agriculture, but elsewhere across the globe, farmers and other players like ourselves need to help tell that story and say, you know what, there is good things going on. Things are getting better, in my opinion, and we need to continue to improve, but also demonstrate how those improvements are benefiting everybody.
Thank you, Bruce. Do we have any other comments from the other speakers on that question?
Yeah, can I say something on this?
Please.
It's a very interesting question. There is some work happening in USA on what are called as nutrition meters, so that you can actually test the nutrition quality. Because right now it's only visual or taste, but we don't have any way of testing the nutritional quality. So there are some technology breakthroughs happening in enabling people to get the nutrition quality. Hopefully, they are saying that it can be possible to have it in your smartphone, so that when you're shopping, you can actually see whether what you're buying has the required nutrition or not. And that's when the consumer pull for organic food, for more nutritious food,
will happen at that time. But it's a matter of time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vijay. I think that's a great and excellent point about having a value proposition that consumers can understand. Perhaps I can move to the second question, which was really a question about underground water channels, mapping of that. And I think it's really interesting. That question also talks to how you can harness farmer and local knowledge in some of the analysis around soil and moisture and the predictive nature of some of the algorithms that are there. I wonder if perhaps there might be, perhaps Professor Arun, if you might like to tackle that question, or if anyone else from a soil moisture perspective would like to tackle that, please unmute your microphone.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question clearly.
The question was about underground water channels and whether there are mapping systems that understand that. But I thought perhaps from the perspective of control systems, there's also the second element of how you map in farmer knowledge and local knowledge. Can you maybe help us with answering that question?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in that, but I can tell you from the brief interactions that I keep having with the faculty who work in this field, that the underground water channels, there is some mapping, but not a full map. At least in the Indian context, I can tell you that the mapping is not complete. In some areas, we do have that information. Typically, the ground levels keep changing, and therefore, these things keep changing with the rainfall phenomenon, the rainfall patterns. Wherever it is available, we do. I think the more reliable information that we have is usually the reservoir information. Unfortunately, the underground water channels, they keep changing so fast, particularly with the increasing population today, that it's hard to actually keep a tab on them. And I don't think in India we have a full mapping of those things. But it's a very interesting question. And again, I think I'll go back to what I said in my talk. Even if you don't have hard sensors for measuring these, you can infer the underground, the level of the water in underground channels by looking at other variables. So you may have to infer in many areas. Unfortunately, that does not happen. So that's the answer that I can give at the moment.
Thank you very much, Professor. Are there any others that would like to weigh in with some comments or answer to that question?
Yeah, I am Shakti Velu from RFA Technologies.
Yes, please.
I like to comment to that question that you asked, actually. This is an interesting factor that I will just repeat the question, what you said. Your question is how to measure the underground water path.
Correct.
Correct. So recently there are a lot of research is happening like water recharge for borewell pumps. For those kind of concepts, this underground mapping is recently happening. Even ISRO, Government of India launched a lot of project on this. I came across a lot of organizations working with ISRO. They are doing a lot of research work like they are taking the earth rock bed calculations. The water channels varies from rock bed 1 to rock bed 2. When the rock bed changes to second one, the water goes inside between that. So based on the rock bed satellite image and the slope, land slope, this water path is predicted. Currently, the people are doing this in a lot of recharging, borewell recharging concept for rainwater harvesting. I saw this project happen in 4 to 5 projects, especially in CMC Vellore. They implemented this project. They calculated the water path underground, and they they made a bore well on that point, and they made a recharge point in that actually. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. So perhaps we'll leave it at that. I want to thank everybody who asked questions along the way for engaging in that, and all of our presenters today for some very, very thought-provoking and some very inspiring talks today. Maybe what I can do is invite Stuart Beck and Professor Kamakati, if you have any final remarks before we wrap up the session today.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. And I think this was a very, very, very well attended and well articulated sessions that we had today. The announcement is that we have two similar sessions, one on October 30 and another on November 6th. And we'll be addressing more on the farm automation and robotics on November 30th, October 30th, and November 6th will be more on the data side. So I request all the attendees to also be present and engage yourself in this very nice, important aspect of precision agriculture. With this, I hand over to Mr. Beck for his comments.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kamakoti. And I think this really is an indication, the session today, an indication of the opportunity for collaboration between Canada and India. And it really is building a knowledge network, which I think is fundamental to success in tackling some of the larger problems that we're facing in the world right now. And it really is, it's been mentioned by both the Deputy Minister, Simon Kennedy, and by the Secretary for DSD, Dr. Sharma, that the potential is immense, and what we need to be able to do, and I think what will come out of the next two sessions is really the framework for collaboration, which will be important. How do we exchange data in a trusted and secure environment? What sort of opportunities are there for cross-border investment? And ultimately, once we get through COVID, the exchange of highly qualified personnel and what that impact will have as well. So my hope is everybody stays and enjoys the next two sessions, because again, we have some wonderful speakers there. So Bill, thanks so much for the digital supercluster and all the work that you've been putting into this. Dr. Kamakoti, you are a remarkable person in terms of your reach and network in India. And I think that's what fundamentally makes something like this work. So thank you all very much for being part of this. And I look forward to the next session next Friday.
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Simon. Thank you, Professor Kamakati. And have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.